In today's episode, we are talking about interior design and your brand, really kind of connecting the two. How should we be thinking of them? How can we create concepts? How can we stay true to ourselves in our store and really elevate that customer experience and connect deeper with our customers? I am so excited for my guest today. Lucy Smothers is a student at Miami University in Ohio, and she was actually connected to me through a mutual friend, Kathy, who one day emailed me and said, "Hey, I know Lucy, and she just got this scholarship. She's doing really cool things with the interior design aspect and can speak to retail. Her family comes from retail. You'll hear a little bit about it in today's episode, but her mom sold wine and her dad sold appliances, and they came together, got married, and then they sold wine and appliances in the same building, and still do. It's really awesome. So she has so much experience. She is definitely rooted in retail with the family business. And then the things she's doing from an interior design perspective, she's just so smart on how you could see, I just could see her visualizing what she's speaking to, the tips she gives retailers today on how to really utilize your physical space and the store. So it's kind of a newer topic. We haven't talked about that much on the show, and I'm really excited for you to learn more. Before we dive in, here's a little bit more about my guest. Lucy Smothers is a passionate interior design student entering her fourth year, driven by the belief that design is a narrative tool capable of evoking any emotion. She sees design as an ever-evolving process where there's always room for improvement and a solution to every challenge. She has a particular interest and passion in watercolor renderings into her projects, allowing her to highlight specific elements with a unique touch. Her niche lies in graphical work, from detailed renderings to crafting visual brands that seamlessly integrate with physical spaces. She says, being a designer feels like one of my true callings, and I'm excited to continue bringing clients' visions to life and expanding my expertise in the years to come. You're going to love hearing Lucy. So let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Crystal Vilkaitis, the Wolf of Main Street, and this is Rooted in Retail. Welcome to Rooted in Retail. I'm thrilled you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we don't know each other. This is our first kind of interaction. We've emailed a little bit as we were preparing for this, but a mutual friend connected us who listens to the show, and she's like, I think you got to have Lucy on. And as I learned about you, and even just our brief, pre-call here, I know this is going to be a really great conversation for our retailers. So I'm so happy you're here. Before we dive in, take just a couple of minutes and share with us your retail journey.
Sure. So I'm a fourth year student at Miami University. I recently just won a huge nationwide scholarship, and I focused on the relationship between branding and interior design. And I also grew up in a family business as well that has definitely shaped my beliefs and my passion and kind of my style. And my parents, they started Ralph's Joy of Living, and it was part wine, retail, part appliance store, and it's the only appliance store in the nation with a wine and beer license. So I grew up in a very unique upbringing, and, always around people and always trying to build a brand that attracts people to come in and just create this place where people can escape. Their actual slogan is "Escape from Grouchy." So,
I love that.
And it's funny, when I think about, my next stage of my life, it's hard to differentiate who I am versus my family business because of how much it's impacted me. And I'm sure for all the viewers watching, they know that if you're a business owner, it really does. The drive, it's so hard being a business owner, and the drive really just consumes you, and in a good way though. And sometimes it's hard to differentiate, you without your passion. So that's my parents' passion, but it, just has truly shaped who I am as a person. So
for sure. And Lucy, is it okay if we share how much you got with the scholarship?
Yes. I won $30,000. So
yeah,
it was, so I literally cried when I won, and it was something that I genuinely still can't believe because it's continually changing my life. A year later, like I actually started the project a year ago around this time, and I had no idea that this scholarship was actually even available. So my professor, she takes 2 best students in the class, and then those 2 best students compete with all the schools in the nation that like have accreditation for interior design, because with architecture and interior design, they have to continually be accredited schools. So that is like, it's kind of like just licensure for like any, any profession. And because my school was accredited, I took my favorite project and then I brought it home with me for summer break. So I already made the project and then it was like, okay, go back, make it better. So I really made it a storyboard. And I think the reason I won is because I actually hand drew a ton. Like, I tried not to make it look tacky or anything, but because it was part flower shop, part like bookstore, part wine. And I'll talk more about the concept in a little bit and how that influences branding. But back to the scholarship. So I make this board, I ship it off to New York. I've never been to New York. And then a few months later, I get an email that I won. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like insane, because I competed against like all the best schools, like the best of the best. And I'm just this girl from small town Ohio that goes to a school called Miami University in Ohio. Yeah. And then once I won, I wrote handwritten letters to everyone that endorsed my project. So it was like a list of 12 firms that endorsed it and the foundation. And the foundation was actually started by an interior designer in the 80s that passed away from AIDS. And his projects were just so memorable. And I think they're just like still getting money over time just because they're just so iconic that he just wanted to like give students a chance. And that's kind of how it started. And it was interesting because it was literally $30,000, but I never really met the people that like caused this to happen. It's like a big deal, but it was just, it was almost like transactional in a sense, because it's like, oh, you won, but like, there's no face to a name. Like, it's just like
weird.
It's just really interesting. So like I said, I started writing letters to every firm that endorsed my project, and 10 other people in the country won. So there's 11 total. And it's so interesting because once I shipped all those letters, I got one back, and that actually got me my like dream job interview.
Yay!
And it's, well, I wanted to bring that up because, knock on wood, I don't like to talk about things before they go into fruit, like before they actually happen. But I wanted to mention this because I was the only person that decided to write a thank you note out of like for $30,000. Isn't that like crazy?
Crazy, but that really is a lesson there of like just taking that extra step to say thank you for such an award. I mean, it's incredible that other people didn't. That's amazing you did. And whether you get the job or not, that you're memorable, you're getting your foot in the door.
For sure.
And you never know what else it leads to. So that's really incredible.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. And I actually got that advice from one of the biggest entrepreneurs in America. He like Jesse,
Heitzler.
Do you know Heitzler? Yes. I actually saw him speak, and he said when he was starting up, he just wrote as many letters as possible. And I remembered that, and I was like, okay. And I didn't even expect anything in return. I was just like, oh, thank you so much. You changed my life. Just started writing them out, didn't really think anything would happen. And then next thing you know, I'm like, Mom and Dad, I'm going to New York.
Amazing. Yeah. Oh, it's so good, Lucy. Well, okay, so let's dive in to hear about this concept for what you did submit, because I mean, obviously it was such a recognition. You were one of the winners. So what did you submit? What's the concept?
Yeah, so the concept was growth. So my whole idea was we got an existing building in Oxford, Ohio, my college town, and we have a farmer's market like once a week that's actually like the best farmer's market I've ever been to. It's like a very rural Ohio town, and they just have so many amazing vendors. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is great, but I never wake up early enough because I'm a college student, I'm having fun. I always miss it every week. And I love to go, but it just ends too early. So what if I could create a place where they could like set up their vendor tables throughout the entire week so they could keep bringing in money for the farmers. And they also need that, reoccurring item that, even if they don't come in for something like produce, they might get a cup of coffee or a glass of wine with a friend. So I wanted to incorporate that small margin in business terms, like a sale, like a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, and then get them through the door. And they might buy a book as well, because we actually don't have like a normal bookstore in Miami, which is really strange. I mean, we have like, college books, but not like just like a classic normal bookstore. So that was also partly the reason why I wanted it to just have a few multi-uses. So that's kind of where that came from. So a little something about design school is that they want you to create this thing called a conceptual idea, but they want you to only put it into one word. So this might be interesting for people listening if they're trying to put their brand in physical terms of like what that might actually look like. So they're like, okay, you have a target market. It's students, it's farmers and like vendors and artists and all that. But what is the actual physical concept that also, like I said, mine was growth. I had like this tree, like that was the whole idea. It was an apple tree and it had lanterns on the ceilings. The idea was that the ceiling guided you throughout every part of the space. So you would want to, just explore and meet someone in your community. So that was the whole idea, that it would kind of put you in this situation where you just are able to meet people. And I guess some advice I would give to someone that if you can't play with levels, like in your design, the ceiling is such a great way for a simple retail space to really add depth or just add something unique that really goes into it. Because it was a simple floor plan. I couldn't add like stairs or anything. I couldn't add anything really architectural per se. I mean, it's still like an architectural project, but it doesn't have like, it was already a pre-made floor plan, which is why it's such a great project for retailers that are really wanting to do something that could spruce it up, Like, again, it would still probably be quite expensive if that came into fruition. But playing with the ceiling, playing with drop downs is such a great way to add a lot of visual taste. So
yeah. And I feel like there's definitely a listener that's like, I never even thought about looking up and like, what can I do with my ceiling? Because there could be some pretty cost effective things to very elaborate lighting. And,
for sure.
I recently talked about this on the podcast where I did store tours in New York City, and the luxury stores, man, their lighting is just next level. But that's intentional, right? Like, but yeah, there's so much you can do with the ceiling if you look up. So that's amazing that you integrated that into your concept to really create this path that seemed like a path to connection and growing within the community and growing relationships. That's really cool.
Yes. Yeah. One more thing on that. I hope I explained this clearly, where what I mean is when you pick one word, it really does make it more simple to just make your brand. I mean, like, brands become the most powerful when people can catch on to them quickly and they're simple. And also from a design standpoint, if it's too vague, it's hard to narrow it down. And a concept isn't like color, or it isn't like growth. When you think of growth, you think of, things really just spurting out, or you might think of a certain shape. That's kind of how designers are taught to feel. Like, what shape do you think of with that word? Like, I've used a concept like unity before, because I designed this library in the past that I was like, oh, it's for children, and I want people to always have someone across from them when they come in. So it had a lot of curves, and the whole idea was, I use this community like thinking a lot in my design. and really just taking that one word unity as like, oh, when I think of unity, I think of people holding hands, and through holding hands, that makes a circle. And if you look on a floor plan, that creates these curves. And then through those curves is how you maybe pick out the furniture, you maybe create your label, or it just keeps going literally from the biggest design decision to the smallest detail. Once you have that one word, it really helps you just have that vision be so much clearer in what you're trying to do.
I think that's an excellent exercise for our listeners of what would be your one word for your brand. Like what, really do that work and think about it. Some listeners might know it right away. Some of us might need to do a little bit more of a deep dive there, but such a great exercise for them and a lens to look through with design, which is awesome. I have huge news. The Independent Retailers Association is live. We are so excited to announce that this online community is here to support independent retailers. We believe that it is the independent era. This is your time to shine. You have so many advantages to stand out, to grow customer experience, to get found online, to be a modern retailer that is relevant to today's consumer. And we want to help aid you in all of that, which you'll find on the Independent Retailers Association. Now, we call it INDERA, short for Independent Era. This is your era, and we're here to just amplify that with you and with all the other independent retailers who are inside of our community. So if you want to join us, membership starts as low as just $25 a month to join the community, get access to education, resources done for you, AI training, and more. Head to joinindera.com. That's join, INDERA.com to see the different membership levels and learn about what we are up to. So I would love to see you on the inside and love to help you grow your store. So head on over to joinindera.com and let's get back to the episode. Okay, so now you're passionate about design and telling a story and evoking emotion. Can you share examples of how retailers can use interior design to emotionally connect with customers and leave a lasting impression?
Yeah, so something I actually wanted to mention on this podcast is thinking, this might sound like a curveball to start with, but I'll turn back to the question. Chipotle, and the Chipotle interior design is literally designed for you to leave. It's cold. You might not think about it, but you really have to. And people might not realize that, but you have to ask yourself what your target market is, because do you want your customers lingering around for a long time, or do you want it returning, coming in and coming out and all these? And so you have to really decide how you're going to connect with the customer through design. But, those questions of how do you want them to interact with your business? How many people do you want coming in and coming out of the store every day? And you really see design a different way when you think, oh, Chipotle's literally so cold and everything's made out of steel because they want you in and out.
It's so true. I don't want to enjoy, sit there and relax after I have my burrito bowl.
I just want to get the heck out. and that's kind of done on purpose. So back to the question on, creating that emotional, connection with people through design. I think, again, that just comes down to having just a clear brand, and also being able to communicate with people. I feel like everyone knows this when it comes to branding, but on a design standpoint, I think it just comes to having just a clear vision of who you are and differentiating yourself, but not trying to stick to the trends, because I saw that in your question, if you try to attract everyone, then you're going to lose everyone. And that's one of my favorite things when it comes to marketing. You try to appeal to the masses, then you're going to offend everyone. You almost have to offend a few to attract the people that you need.
One thing I want to add on to that, and then I can say it again, is that it does seem obvious sometimes of what is the thing that makes you stand out and differentiate yourself in the marketplace, and really pulling that in and your brand. And what happens often with small businesses And even big boxes, I think, is that we can lose our voice. We can lose our direction. We can get caught up in the trends, or we're just so busy doing so many things that we literally skip that step. And it's like, I say this a lot, be brilliant at the basics. And so that is a basic foundational aspect to brand. And then that can evoke emotions. But I'm really glad that you said that, because I think it's a really important piece to the puzzle. And the question was really about just how can you share examples of how retailers can use interior design to emotionally connect with customers and leave a lasting impression?
I mean, it's so hard because like thinking about physical things, like if I were to give off like elements like, oh, you could do like this display, this, that, or, you know, this color, or just like color is literally the least interesting thing when it comes to interior design, actually. Like I'm more taught to think like an architect. And one advice I could give on a physical standpoint is something they teach us in school that I'll never forget is like design is imagining you can take everything out of your store and move it around. That's interior design, meaning that it's not the things you can move and change. It's the things that are there, like, and you can't move them, which means like per se that ceiling or that countertop or something that creates an experience. If you have a simple layout for your store, the best thing to do is think about what is the experience that someone has walking right through that door to the end of the store, and maybe creating this pathway that people don't even think about. And once you create that kind of pathway that people aren't really even intentionally thinking, I mean, people do it all the time. Like, right. We don't even think about it, but you know, they make you walk past those big buck items to get to that small margin item, and then you leave the store. And it really just comes down to creating an intentional experience for your customers through design. And, you know, every solution is different in design. And that's one of the great things about my profession is that every project is so different, because every brand is so different, you know, and there's not a simple solution to how to convey your brand through interior design. But I'd say just start with putting yourself in your customer's shoes and just saying, what's the experience they have right when they walk through that door to get to the end? And what do they have when they leave? And there's so many things that we visually take in that we don't even realize. Like they teach us, you know, just the 5 senses. It's really, as you know, there's so much in business too. It's all psychological thinking sometimes. And well, I really like that, but I don't know why I like that. Sometimes we can never put our finger on why we're so attracted to something, but everything was completely thought out, you know?
Yeah. It's so true. The intentionality behind it. You're so right. There's so many experiences that we've been through that we don't even realize, but it was so planned and intentional. And I do think that there could be opportunities for our listeners to zoom out and really look at their store in different lenses and through the customer's shoes, being really intentional with that experience and storytelling and evoking those emotions. Now, I'd love to know, what are some practical steps retailers can take to ensure their physical space aligns seamlessly with their business branding and creates a cohesive experience for customers?
I would like to start by giving one of my favorite examples of a brand that like works well with interior space. It was the St. Kate in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I was there visiting my brother, and I absolutely loved it, and it left a huge impression on me because it was like an art hotel, and even to the smallest detail they had in the soap, like in the hotel, it just had this seamlessly amazing brand. And I think to create that strong connection, you really have to just do the little things are the big things in design. They teach us. Even the smallest details are sometimes the most important part of a project. So, and the customers see that. Like, and I think if you think about, you know, maybe the holidays or like how you even, you know, wrap a present, Like, yeah, they might throw out that little sticker, you know, with your logo on, but it's more about the experience that gives your customers. And people buy what they see most of. That's why people will advertise to the day, you know, to literally the day forever, because it's really just repetition, repetition, repetition. What are you seeing all the time? That logo. And I think the dream is literally seeing someone's logo without words and having it evoke something. That's, I think, the dream for any business owner is like thinking of a color or thinking of this and they think of you. So going back to the St. Kate, yeah, I think it's really in the small details on what you intentionally choose to expose your customer to. And branding doesn't always have to be something physical. Like, you know, you think of Chick-fil-A and it's really just people saying my pleasure and that's their branding. You know, it doesn't, like, I'm trying to not just say brand, color, logo, think about it, because it's just so complex, so much more complex than that. Like, I think a brand can literally just keep going and it can just be so much bigger than the things that people have heard so many times, you know, and it really just comes down to first knowing that word that we talked about earlier, knowing that word and keeping that word in the back of your mind all the time and making every decision that you make going back. Does that align with that word? Because going a step further every single year, you know, but still going back to that core value, that core concept and see if it's aligned and never stop growing.
Yeah, it's so true. I'm really glad that you touched on that because brand isn't, to your point, just the visual, like the look of it with the colors, the fonts. It's so much more. And it really is a feeling and it can be an emotion. And to your point of Chick-fil-A, I actually use them in one of my presentations because I teach what's called unreasonable hospitality. And when you have just an incredible customer experience, people remember it. And that is part of your brand. And so you can create these unreasonable rules where if X happens, we Y. And that becomes part of the brand. And that is our structure. And so for Chick-fil-A, when a customer says, thank you, they say my pleasure. And you have those rules. So that's so part of the brand.
For sure. Yeah. I think, again, you just have to keep growing just because you always want to have, you know, that next mountain to climb. But as long as you ground yourself in why you first started and taking that word, and I don't know, maybe it's hard for me to explain because it just comes so naturally to me to see a logo and just be like, oh, that would be perfect for like that physical space, you know? And it's almost hard to describe how you can do that because I think it can go so beyond furniture, you know, and like how I mentioned, literally anything you can move in the space can come and go, but it's the things that are really embedded in that physical experience that you want to establish in the design of your brand.
It's like the assets that you have. So these are the core structure of the building that's not going anywhere. So how do we really integrate those structures, that wall, that counter space, all those things, even a beam that might be right in the middle, or to your point with the ceiling. Like, I think what you're really helping our listeners do, which is cool, is the zoom out, think bigger, think more than just my business card and my print and my signage, and really look at all the different assets that you have.
Yeah. You actually just reminded me of something. I can list a few conceptual ideas that people use in school and kind of give a few examples on, I think that might help. So a few I've used is exposure and reveal. And I could kind of talk about the project briefly. I have like this hypothetical client he was gay and he was married and they had a daughter. And we had to create this, you know, this apartment in New York that encapsulated who they are as people. So I chose exposure and reveal because, you know, being proud, exposing who you truly are. And you can show that through having stairs that you can, you know, see like a stair with an exposed spine, or I had just small details, or like a bike. I had a bike rack that was vertical wood beams so that you put the bikes on and you could see the child's playroom on the other side. And just like those small details of like, okay, exposure, reveal, and then making those design decisions where you can slightly see on the other side of things. Or if like you have a brand that's feels weightless or feels light, you could, take those design decisions to make everything feel a bit lighter, or like take that wall and maybe, bring it down a little bit so you can see the other side of things, see the other side of what you're trying to divide the store in between. So that's one of my conceptual ideas. And then I used Unity a few times to like I talked about earlier, just like creating a library. And I wanted people to always have someone across from them when they came in. So thinking about, okay, if people are holding hands, that makes a circle, and then, someone's across from you, and then that creates an experience. And right now I'm designing an apartment complex that battles the loneliness epidemic. And it's also like a community center. So I studied for like 4 months research on the loneliness epidemic. And then I'm going with the concept of connection. So when I think of the word connection, I think of strings intertwining. And when I think of, that's what my mind goes to. And that's kind of how designers start the process, is they're like, okay, I'm thinking about lonely individuals. I'm thinking about bringing my target market is old and young. I'm bringing them together. And again, from reading, I was like, okay, my one word is connection. And then what are the physical things I think of when I think of that word? And then I go to, okay, I think of strings intertwining. And then I start thinking on a floor plan scale. And I'm like, okay, do I see it being open, or do I see it being kind of more of a narrow experience where things are kind of intersecting? Like I start with the word, and then I create a drawing, and then I literally is like, how can this actually be intersecting with ADA, and like all these restrictions? And then it just kind of keeps going from there, and it just kind of manifests itself from that one word. So that's kind of, maybe it might help.
Yeah. Oh, that totally helps. And it gives the visual. And I think our retailers are such creative beings. And so being able to see it, picking a word, letting your mind play with that, I think is awesome. And we'll talk about AI here in a minute, but I talk about AI a lot on the show. And I could see a retailer going to ChatGPT or whatever, tool that they like. And playing like, hey, I want to design this space. I really want to pull my brand through. This is my word. And then just start using it as a brainstorming tool to come up with some cool concepts. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I've used in school, we've kind of dabbled with Midjourney. I don't know if you've heard of that type. Yeah, I think it's pretty popular now. And then, you type in the few buzzwords and you're like, oh, let's see what it makes. And we do dabble with that a little bit for inspiration and everything. Okay. And it definitely is a great tool for sure. And we're always taught, every precedent has a precedent, like, which means like, every past inspiration has inspiration before that. And it really is insane how, if you study like architectural history, everything around us it started by the trading market. Everyone has traded ideas for centuries and made it their own. Like, it's really just part of the design world is we're constantly borrowing. We're always constantly taking and giving, and then taking that crazy idea, putting it with all your, ideas, and then making it your own.
Yeah. So. And that's what stands out. And that's what connects to the customer. Now, we talked a little bit about trends earlier, and they're always shifting in interior design and in retail. How should retailers balance incorporating trends while maintaining a timeless, authentic space that still feels true to their brand? Like earlier, you kind of mentioned, you don't want to do all the trends. Do you think that some apply? What's your take on trends?
The first thing that comes to my mind is when I'm walking to class every day, I pass this retail store that changes the woman's outfits literally like every second, So I'm always looking at the window and I'm always like, oh, what's the new thing they have? And, those things are still important to get you back in the store. And the things that can come and go, hopefully aren't your core design. Like the trends right now are just like all white kitchens. And I think through personal and through business, you have to ask yourself, do I personally resonate with this? And that's something I ask myself all the time because I love some trends. I don't think trends are always such a bad thing. I don't think they're necessarily like something you should just be like, oh, that's a new idea. I should just like go the other way. Like new ideas are great, but they just have to resonate with you personally. I think successful businesses come from you just manifesting yourself and like what you love. And if people are attracted to that, then you win life, because I think that's the goal for everyone is creating something that you truly resonate with and then having that certain target market, because again, not everyone's going to be attracted to that,
Right.
But it's the people, like you're never going to please everyone, but the people you do, that's all that matters. And staying true to yourself. And if you're trying hard to just, again, lose sight of that one word or lose sight of your brand, you might pick up on those trends or see, oh, like people love that. I'm going to incorporate that. Not do I love that? And constantly putting yourself back in the shoes of what's best for me, what's best for my brand. So I think you just have to constantly circle back to yourself. And we talk about a lot with sustainability in design. And I'd say the best thing you can do is if you're really thinking about doing some serious design work in your business, you want to make sure it lasts a long time. It's not something that you just want to like take out in the next maybe 7 to 10 years. It might be something you want to keep for a bit longer. So kind of just establishing who you are and maybe taking some trends. I mean, really it just comes down to making things your own, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know.
I couldn't agree more. I actually think that you have a lot of wisdom for our listeners and, you do. I mean, I think that sometimes we can get really caught up in the trends where we lose our own voice, and ultimately people do want the connection, and what resonates with somebody might not resonate with another person, but we don't want to attract the wrong people that we are trying to pull into our store. And that can often be so connected to who we are depending on the store. So I think that was so well said. I couldn't agree more. And I want to talk about kind of the future of interior design. Like, it's evolving. Everything is evolving, especially with enhancements with AI. So how can independent retailers leverage these tools to enhance their store design and customer experience?
First, to start out with, the interior design industry is actually booming right now. So just to start off with that fun fact, I mean, ever since COVID, people have really, thought, and not just homes, like interior design is so big. Like we even learn healthcare, we learn, schools, like literally everything, So I think moving forward, AI, like it doesn't, for the listeners not really sure what AI can do yet in the interior design world, it could give those inspiration images, but it's not quite there of like actually making the floor plan or anything. Like I've seen like some things where it kind of like makes it kind of quick, and it probably will get there eventually, honestly. But personally, I'm not worried for the future of like it hurting, because people still want it to be a true reflection of who they are. And also, I don't think people should be worried about AI. I think they should be curious. And again, dabbling with it isn't a bad thing. And definitely mess with Midjourney. And it really helps. Midjourney might actually help your listeners kind of think about that 4 or 5 core words. And what does that make? And it's endless on like what it can do. And back to like the industry right now in design, people are expecting things a lot faster because of AI. And maybe that's affecting the business world as well. I feel like with globalization and people, technology just being so a part of our lives more and more. People are expecting things so fast. You're expecting things fast from, maybe the designer, the artist. And that's causing people on the design realm to really speed up our process, which can sometimes inhibit. That's honestly something that personally scares me the most with AI is like, I'm not afraid of it, but it's more of just like, it takes a long time to make a building, to really make it ground up. It takes a long time, but those images are making clients and people on the other side of things being like, oh my gosh, I want that, and they think the images that we make, like the images that you saw of my rendering that won the scholarship, it took hours because everything's related to floor plan. Everything's, a measurement. And I think it's really just stepping back and being like, nothing good comes easy. That's one of my personal quotes of just, good things take time. Just be patient. Like AI will give you some great ideas, but don't personally hold on to them. Like good ideas come and go. And I think true lasting things are things that you make your own. And like I said, every artist, every creative person gets ideas from other creative people. It's really a beautiful thing. We all get things from everyone. So
it's so true. Yes, it's so true. Okay, Lucy, are you ready for the resilience round?
Yes.
Okay, best business book.
I said anything by Tony Robbins. Awesome. And I know it's rapid fire, but like I said, I grew up in a family business and my mom always had, the classics like Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Like I looked it up. I was like, I always grew up with those around my room. Personally, I'm not going to lie. I haven't read them yet, but I do love Tony Robbins. I love his quotes.
I know he is great. Best retail technology, like an app or software.
My parents use Possum. Again, I know I'm a design student. Maybe that helps. For people that are interested in what I use Revit and AutoCAD, and I also use Enscapes. And actually a great thing, again, I know it's rapid fire, is Material Bank. It's really great if you're looking to bring in samples that you're interested in, if you're trying to do a design project, and they'll send them for free straight to your door if you prove that you are a business person.
Amazing.
So,
Material
designer,
Bank.
yeah,
okay,
might be helpful.
Yeah, and then what is Possum?
Possum, it's just a software that helps on the retail scape for them. I'm surprised you haven't heard of it. I mean, I'm not really in that world, but they sell wine, gadgets, and it really just does everything to how you check out with the customer to going back to inventory and everything. It's also, it's really interesting for my parents because they do appliances and wine and retail, and it's a completely different system, if you're selling different things. So it seems to work for them though, doing those big scale items. So yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, awesome. How do you keep up with the ever-changing retail landscape?
Stay true to who you are, that one word. Yep. I'd say it's the best thing to do.
Yep. So good. To help retailers be stronger, more rooted in success, what's one essential design best practice they should prioritize?
I don't want to say the same thing of going back to that one word, but design best practice, I say staying true to your brand, but don't be afraid to switch things up. Don't be afraid to get people back in the door.
If you had to start your career or your schooling all over again, what's one thing you'd do differently?
This might be not the best answer, but I would go back and choose a minor. And I think I would take a language, honestly. I really wish I knew another language besides English. Not really related to my major or anything.
That's great.
Yeah. I think I tell everyone that just because of my business background, that it's all, if you have a business degree, I think it's so important to have that one thing that makes you stand out as an individual. And that kind of goes back to me, writing those letters, literally doing anything you can to stand out makes you like an amazing, it's the people that get there. And, it doesn't mean you might be the best for the job, but the fact that you're showing up, the fact that you have that thing that makes you stand out is how you get amazing opportunities. So.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Lucy, finally, what do you think the future of independent retail looks like?
the market's oversaturated right now. Like, I don't think it actually is, but technology makes it feel like it is. So I think the best thing you could do is to just be authentic with your target market. Whether that's through design, whether that's through branding, just really creating a brand that really you truly believe in and feels authentic and actually talks to people and creates a solution to a problem that you care about. Mm-hmm. And that's how you stand out in an ever-changing landscape, because there's always going to be new brands, but the one that really it's doing the most to help people. Like, my mom actually, I know it's rapid fire. My mom actually believes Amazon's going to go down in the next 10 years because they keep making mistakes with customer service. So anything you can do that always prioritizes the customer experience through any realm is the best way to create a lasting business.
Yes, I so agree. Lucy, how can people connect with you and learn more?
I'd say the best way to connect with me is through LinkedIn. It's just my name, Lucy Smothers. And I also have like a studio Instagram. It's just studio_Lucille, Lucille, Smothers. That's a way to see my work. And yeah, I do have my portfolio on Issue as well. It's just an online publishing app. So if you just put in my name and then put ISSUU, you can see my work as well.
Amazing. I can't wait to go check it out. And we'll link to all this in the show notes as well. Lucy, thank you so much for being here and sharing your experience. You're my first student. This was so great.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I had such a great time.
Yeah, me too. Everyone, remember that I'm rooting for your success. Have a great week ahead. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Rooted in Retail podcast. It means the world to me to have you here. If you find value in this show and you listen on an iPhone, if you could leave a review on the Apple Podcast app, that would be amazing. And if you watch YouTube, if you're a YouTube subscriber, we film this. And so if you rather watch the show, you can also do that over on YouTube. Again, thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.